Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the BFG Podcast. Today we are back with part two of our interview with Wellington Phoenix General Manager David Dome, and we are here today with also our Flight of the Next Facebook group members Jonathan Higger and Denise Duffy. Welcome to you all.
Kia ora, Blake.
So I'm going to open the floor to Jonathan for the first section.
Cool. Thanks, Blake. Morning, David. Great to be on this call with you. Thank you for making the time. We really appreciate it. One of the key topics that we'd really like to explore with you this morning is around mental health and how that is, what are the structures and the things that the Knicks do to help support players, especially with their mental health. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a hot topic at the moment, Jonathan, with everything that's going on. More so, especially for us in the last couple of seasons, given relocation, being away from family and friends. We've obviously been involved in the space in the past. We've had a relationship with Mental Health Foundation, and we did that. I don't know if you remember that purple strip, but that was a Mental Health Foundation strip, and that was really the club's recognition that it is the greatest, social challenge in front of New Zealanders at the moment, and how we respond to that. So we want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem, of course. So there certainly is that, and we put some processes in place when we did that with Mental Health Foundation. So we had some structures that they sent to us that we put in front of staff and players. So there's helplines to ring, resources to access if required. There's also a pretty good program that the union puts in place, the Professional Football Association union, really good. So we have a Helen Regan, who's our conduit there. There are some support services that the union runs through both the teams, which is very useful. And then specifically in terms of the relocation, with the men's team over the last couple of years, we've encouraged family to travel with the players to make it as normal as possible, which the club has financed. And where the players had partners or family, then we flew the partners over and then flew them back in time for school. Try and keep it as much as, as normal as possible. And that specific challenge that we had when they're away from home, which is only one of the challenges, of course. Mental health goes much broader than that. And with the women, we had a specific person that we had there, which was a sort of a mentor type role. And to be fair, I think a lot of the support that the women had, they did internally anyway. I think you've heard Gemma talk about the role that Lily played and as a bit of a mentor for the players. And then we had someone over there, like I say, we had someone over there as well who we specifically put in place for mental health and support services, which is very, very useful because she's quite skilled in that space. So we continue to work in that area. Like I say, we do have a lot of help from other areas, but it is something that we are focused on, and we are, not only within the first teams, but also within the academy space as well. We have a chaplain in our academy. We want to expand that we have a male chaplain. We want to expand that by having a female chaplain. We also he made some references for us in New South Wales for the women's team when they're over there as well. And we're looking to always continue to grow. And in fact, your timing's good. We're just working on a bit of a strat plan for the academy for the next 5 years. And one of the things we're looking at there is mental health support services, and actually putting a person in that role who they will be multifaceted, but part of the JD will be skills in that space. So that's something that we're very conscious of, no doubt.
Yeah, very cool. I was listening to a podcast or an interview that Chloe Knott did, and I was listening to that on Friday, and she was talking about the women's experience, all living together in the halls at Wollongong University and the different dynamics. It'll be really interesting to see how they decompress when they get home, because they were coming out of this high pressure situation and then returning home to the kind of normal before they left. Are there any support systems or things, like that follow up after the season's done for the ladies and then for the men later on?
The men is, because it's not for another couple of months, the men's one, I mean, The reality is with the men is they're much more adept at it because they've been doing it for years and years and years. And so, like I said, there are always those options available to them that are those current structures and processes in place. With the women's, it's slightly different in that New Zealand football, as we've sort of spoken about in the past, it's sort of a JV with New Zealand football. So we'll slide over into New Zealand football support services once the women get home. So they all go there in theory, because of the way the season works. They all should be on 4 weeks annual leave when they get back. The reality is some of them are students and they'll continue to work, and some of them might have part-time jobs and all that sort of stuff. What we're looking at is how we can turn that into more of a full-time career for these players. So they have 4 weeks annual leave and they come straight back into training. But specifically with in terms of the mental support, we'll be working with Gareth Jennings, who is their technical director, and making sure that we keep across. And Gemma, of course, who will be sort of the lead out of this process. I will continue to have discussions with Gemma for quite some time, and we'll be monitoring the players as they come out of it.
Very cool. Very cool. We have had, just as admins of our Facebook group, we've had a few of the family members of the players who have been at home in New Zealand who have reached out and acknowledged the fantastic work that and the support systems around the girls over in Australia. I mean, for families here, it's been just as hard, but they've reached out to us and said they really appreciate all that you've put together to help support both them and their kids who are playing professionally overseas.
Yeah, it was such a unique situation. It was certainly, we would never have envisaged that the first year they would be based overseas for the entire year. You would never plan it that way, of course, because given their age and that they're all of them, well, yeah, I mean, essentially all of them were brand new to professional football as such. Then you would certainly want to have their family and support structures around them. But as you know, it was either we did it this year or we missed that opportunity, and we didn't really want to miss that opportunity. And I've been absolutely thrilled by how they've dealt with it. It's certainly not been, it's certainly not being a challenge in terms of managing the players. Do you know what I mean? They've done everything right. They've trained hard. They've worked hard. They've been very focused, and they've been great ambassadors for not just for the club but for the league as well. And you've seen that in the media in Australia and in New Zealand. So I've been very, very thrilled, and I think they've done so well.
Okay. Sorry.
I have one follow-up. David, if you had endless budgets and, the union had endless budgets around this subject, how would you like it to be? If you were to envision, a way of supporting not just the athletes, but also the staff through tricky times, what kind of ideas do people have, and what's the reality of supporting those kinds of things?
The first thing I'd do is I'd put them all on 12-month contracts. So at the moment, they're given the nature of the league, it's only a 14-game league, and they're looking to expand that, and that's the next step. Ideally, everyone would be on 12-month contracts, and to be honest, we would have them relocate to Wellington, where we can put them under our new program, which is going to be based in Upper Hutt, our new high performance centre. That will give us the best chance to be able to support them mentally and physically, because in that situation, it gives them certainty. It gives certainty of salaries, certainty of their program, what they're going to be doing day in, day out. In some ways, it's easier within the academy structure, right? Because those players are with us all the time. So we have full support in terms of schooling, both secondary schools. So we manage we don't manage the secondary school program, but we keep across their secondary school programs and their teachers. And we have an AUT tertiary program, which we run actually in the academy, within the academy, so that these players are with us the whole time. And that way it's actually much cleaner in terms of managing them and understanding them, where they come, and understanding the player. And the academy keeps excellent notes in terms of, like, for example, they do wellness every morning. So every morning they get up and they have to fill out on their phones, how do they feel today, which is not just physical, but mental as well. So that means, like, on a day-to-day level, we know how every player is doing. And if there is an intervention required, then we can see it through that monitoring service. So that's ideally how you'd like it to be with the women and with the staff, is you want them to be 12-month contracts based in Wellington, where we are running the program, 100% of the time. And then you can keep across them, and you can do the wellness apps and all that sort of stuff. So that would be the first chance. And then certainly, like you said, we'd like to build out the support structures like we do in the academy, where we have this. He's not part-time, but he's certainly around the academy a lot, this chaplain, and you'd like to be able to have someone full-time like that within the camp, within the club. And, to a certain extent, Helen does that through the union, but, it would be good if someone who is actually at training every day, sits down with the players one-on-one. It would be a full-time role that you'd like to have within the club, no doubt about it. And it would stretch. You could easily, there would easily be a full-time role for that sort of person across men, women, and the academy. And like I say, we're as we work through the strategic plan now with the academy, whether that role stretches into the other teams is something that we can look at.
Okay. So a general question from me, David. So with the piling up of postponements, are you confident that we can get through all of our games, such as just like Perth, or are there going to be some scheduling issues now that we are getting closer to the back end of the season?
There will definitely be scheduling issues, because there were scheduling issues before the weekend, and now we've got another one on the table. So, look, will we get through it? Yes. Will there be lots of games in a short time frame? Yes. So we've played 12 games of a 26-game season. We're not even halfway through, Blake. That's the issue. We're not even halfway through, and we're at the beginning of March already. So we've had so many postponements. So we now have to play essentially 14 games in 2.5 months. And there's not that many weekends. So inevitably we're going to be playing midweek for a lot of those. I guess part of the positive is, there's positives and negatives and everything, of course, but WA is now opened up, so you can get teams in and out of Australia, in and out of Perth, which is good and it's bad, because we now have to travel to Perth, whereas previously Perth games were in Tasmania or New South Wales, which was advantageous. Now we've got to get on. It's a 5-hour flight from New South Wales over to Perth, so it's quite a long way. And of course, we're still very hopeful, and that's one thing we're working on now, is trying to get games in New Zealand. So. And even if it's a 10% chance, we want to try and work towards it. So the plan is to schedule as many home games that we've got left, which is probably 4 now in end of April. And that gives us the most chance for the government to drop us out of red light into orange light, and then we can have open stadia. Now we're now relatively confident that we can get people in to New Zealand, Australians and New Zealanders and foreigners, as a sports team, and that they can come in and train and play games. But the issue is that, it's pointless if you're going to only have 100 people there. So if now 50% of the job is done in terms of getting them in. Now, if we can get out of red light down to orange light, then, that would be fantastic. And then we're away. But it still means a lot of games in a very short period of time. And the issue, of course, is there's not a massive squad depth in any of the A-League teams. It's not as if you have 30, 40 players that you can call on. We've got 22, 23 players, and that's about it. We lose the All Whites as well throughout the window, both inside and outside the window. So we've worked with New Zealand Football, and we said that we will release some of our players outside, because the World Cup qualifiers, like 1 week's in the window and 1 week's outside the window. So we've agreed with New Zealand Football, we will release some players outside the window to give the All Whites the best chance of qualification. But it's 2 weeks. I mean, that's a long time. Over 2 weeks, that's a long time. And then, of course, when players get back, they can't play the next day. You can't get off a 12-hour flight from Dubai and play the next day. So we'll lose some players for quite a long time in the middle of playing 3 games in a week over 2 weeks. I mean, it's a big challenge, there's no doubt about it. But, the squad is good. I think Ufi's doing a great job in managing them. They're buoyant over there. I know that they're confident about how far they can go within the competition. And if we can just get through the season and be in the finals, then we've done it before. And we know that we can upset teams. It's just we've got to get to that space and hopefully not lose too many players along the way. I mean, the one small consolation out of the cancellation on Sunday night was that Renault and Gary Hooper weren't fit to play. So it gives them another couple of days, but we're already playing midweek this week. So I don't know if they're going to be ready in time, but it's going to be a huge challenge. There's no doubt about it. We're not the only team, but at the moment we are the most affected team because we've played the fewest out of any team in the league now.
And do you feel like, and as a consequence, not as a consequence, but as a light at the end of the tunnel, as you said, that, like you were saying, that could open the door to come home? Have you spoken to Prime Minister, and have you spoken to Minister Robinson?
Yeah, we work through Sport New Zealand. So we're now confident that we can get players into the country and that they can train and then play the game and then go home. So we're okay in that space. But again, that's only 50% because the second part of it is unless we come out of red light, there's no point bringing we want to bring them home because I want to play in front of the fans. But you're going to get 100 people in there. It's kind of a bit. And to be honest, I mean, I was talking to Shane Harmon at Sky the other day. The cost of opening up a whole stadium to be honest, under the current restrictions, it would be 1,000. Maybe 1,000 people would go. It's huge because you have to have security. You're essentially opening up a whole stadium for 1,000 people. So you've got to have security at every gate. You've got to clean the whole stadium from top to bottom because for the COVID implications. So it would just mess them, and it would be a massive cost. Unless you're going to charge $1,000 per ticket, it's probably not worthwhile. But again, if we can work towards and schedule with APL as many games as we can in the second half of April, home games, then we bring the games back to New Zealand, play the games, and then shoot back for hopefully the final series.
And is there any consideration from the league to extend the season, and in turn, other international players like Sybil able to get into the country?
They are looking at we can't extend the season past the end of May, and there's a whole lot of logistical reasons for that. There's all sorts of things like World Cup qualifiers, and the junior Socceroos have a program that they're adhering to, and then there is some work that's happening with Australian governments and all that sort of stuff, which means we can't go past May. That's the hard line. There is potentially the ability to extend the regular season into May by 1 week and then just shortening up or not cramming more of the final series into midweek games as well. So and I think we just don't have any alternative. We'll have to do that. But that's sort of where it's at. Can they extend the season? Yes, but it's just sort of cramming more games into the same window as opposed to extending the season out past May. We can extend the regular season 1 week potentially into May, and that's what they're looking at now.
And you're confident you can get the international imports into the country despite the rules?
Yeah, that's what we understand at the moment from Sport New Zealand is we can get players from other nationalities into the country on this. I can't remember the official term, but something like there's a designated event classification that you can get. So in fact, all the codes have it now. Ask the Rugby League and the Breakers, so you can get people from outside Australia, and of course outside New Zealand. And of course, by mid-April, Australians should be allowed to come in under that as well. But it's actually, like you say, it's the other players, international players, where that wasn't, and under the current plans, that wasn't supposed to be until mid-year you could get a non-Australian New Zealanders in. But under this designation, I think we can get our players through. So yeah, that ticks that box, which would be, it's advantageous, of course. It all helps. It's all part of the jigs we've got to put together. But like I say, the red light one's the biggest stumbling block at the moment. It's interesting that the Cricket World Cup's gone to 10% of stadia, which is useful. But again, I mean, even 10% of Sky is only 3,500 people, where, we know for a fact, like we did it last year, we'd have 25,000 if we brought a game back. And imagine if it was a finals playoff game, would be 35,000. So, you know, to have 3,500 people there is not hugely beneficial, but, you know, let's say hopefully we can get out a red light and have something back.
And sorry, so yeah, sorry, Denise, the floor is yours.
Oh, get in there, Blake.
So are you confident that sorry, not confident, are you happy with the impact that groups like ours are having? That I know we've talked about this before a bit, but like being able to see what, like Jonathan was saying earlier, having the women's families find our group and stuff like that, because our goal with the group that we made, and this is not a knock on the other groups, and I apologize for any offense in advance, but our group purpose was to try and be one of the most inclusive groups on the market, and so we strive to allow people from the the rainbow community and people with disabilities and stuff like that, and create a platform that people could come into and feel comfortable to even talk about stuff that wasn't football related, maybe, if they were having their own issues or anything like that. So are you happy with the group that that are able to bring support to the women or the men?
Yeah, I mean, yes, of course. I don't think you can have too many supporters groups, and the fact that you can have ones that are focused on slightly different areas is positive, right? Like, as a club, we pride ourselves on being very inclusive, and we've worked with Rainbow Youth in the past and Rainbow Fever, all these sorts of things. And in fact, fingers crossed, we're back next year. We want to do more in that space next year. We already started talking about what next season looks like now and how we're going to do that. We saw what Adelaide did, which I thought was talking about inclusivity. You saw what Adelaide did last round, I think it was, which was a huge success. And everyone looked at that and go, right, how can the rest of the, funny enough, like I say, we were looking at this the last couple of months about planning for next year. And everyone's going, all right, we need to be part of this as well. So all of it it's all very, very positive. And, everyone has this slightly different focus, knowing little niche areas, why it was started up and who it was started up for. And I think, like you say, Blake, the fact that the families have jumped on this group, I think is excellent. They feel very included and they find out information, and, it gives access to the club in a different way. Because the official channels are all very well and good, but it is the official channels, right? And you want other ways for people to be able to access the club outside the official channels, because you can have opinions that the club can't have as independents and as fans, and, it's one of those cases, we can say, well, you can say that, but we can't possibly comment, and that's all positive, and it all adds to the rich variety that is football. And, football is football. Everyone plays it all around the world. There are so many different varieties of football now, and it's all positive. And of course, as a club, we want to embrace all of that and be a part of as much of that as we can. And what you've seen, that little corner of yellow, what they've done over there, in the absence of Yellow Fever being able to have a formal presence over there, in the absence of any fans, really, to be honest. I mean, they built something from scratch over the last couple of years when the men turned up, and now they've got their own little band, little corner of yellow over there, and we hope that kicks on so that we play our away games over there going forward. That those guys turn up and become like a home away from home when we play at Leichhardt. Whenever we play, they're essentially New South Wales based. But when we play New South Wales away games, that those guys turn up, and it's all adds to the rich variety and the depth of the club. And I couldn't be happier with how these little shoots have started up. I think mainly because the club has had to relocate, but there's been a lot of really interesting things that come out of the woodwork because of the necessity of being able to keep in contact over when we've been playing in a foreign country or in a different country to our home country. So no, it's been excellent, and I've been really thrilled by how these little shoots have come out.
And are you confident that there's a possibility that the little yellow corner and the original yellow fever could somehow join together at a home game or something?
That'd be cool. How cool would that be? I mean, yellow fever. I've got to be. I mean, I've said it a lot of times. I'm a big fan of yellow fevers. I think what they do is excellent. They make football at Wellington Phoenix games what football is. They do the singing and the chanting and the colours and the shirts off for 10 minutes to go, all that sort of stuff. That's yellow fever. That's not the football club. That's not Wellington Phoenix. And we just try and aid and abet that as best as we can to make it work. Yeah, but I'm hopeful that at some stage in the future, and that when the borders open, we have games here in Wellington, and we, if we have a game at Sky Stadium and get 25,000, that little corner of yellow do turn up, and that would be really cool. And I don't think there'll be any issues. Again, I think yellow fever is generally pretty good at welcoming. And I mean, I've been with yellow fever when they've welcomed them fans from every club. Whenever we're at home playing at Sky Stadium, and away fans turn up, yellow fever look after them. They're a very opening and welcoming organisation, and they bring them to the after match, and they buy them drinks, and they take them around the city, and they're really good like that. So I would have no doubt that little corner of yellow would be welcome, warmly embraced.
So there you go, guys. I know you watch these videos, so the challenge is set. Come to New Zealand.
I think some of them have said they would come if the border was open and we had games in New Zealand, just to be part of that, a big crowd again. And hopefully they would. I don't know if they would want to be in yellow fever or if they want their own area, but I'm sure that they'd be warmly embraced.
So, is there any? I can't remember the topics. I've gone on a bit of a tangent now.
I think that's just an awesome place to end it. I mean, I think one of the questions our fans have, we've reached out to the club on this, that, and the other, and we haven't heard back. We sent an email on this topic, haven't heard back. What can you say to the fans who, that in those simple interactions feel frustrated and want to make sure they're communicating with the club as they're communicating with them? Sometimes it's just the little things. I wrote about ticketing, haven't heard back. I wrote about this, haven't heard back.
We want to know what's happening with our season passes. We haven't heard back. Stuff like that, David.
Yeah. Look, I've got to be honest, is that we have struggled with this year. We are running very, very skinny. You know what I mean? We are very skinny. Yep. Yeah. And that's purely by necessity because, like I said, I've spoken to you in the past, we've taken a massive revenue hit. And this is not an excuse. This is just the context. Any normal season, and in fact, we are up resourcing now. In the next 4 weeks, we're going to start bringing people back in anticipation of next year, because we're going to need people back in operational roles to start running the club again. So what's happened is that we've just employed people in Australia to run the operational side of it. Now, we haven't had someone in the marketing role for some time, although that person's coming on board in the next couple of weeks. And then there's also things like community, because there's no point. We couldn't really have a community manager because there was no community appearances to manage, right? Because neither of the two teams here. But that role will come back on, and same with ticketing and the membership. That'll be a role that we bring on back in again. Because again, we couldn't really have a membership manager or ticketing manager. I mean, God bless the people that did buy memberships, because there wasn't many of them. God bless the ones that did, because it did help us get through 1 month. Beginning of the year, where we needed some cash to be able to pay people, and that actually helped us get it across the line. So, if there are emails that are going on, I mean, I will raise it with the team because they must be going somewhere, and it does depend on the email address that people are sending emails to, so I'll have a look into it. But inevitably, all of those would be owned by one person. We just don't have that person in place. And it's not as simple as just bringing somebody on to answer emails, because they have to. There's a whole lot of work that goes into bringing somebody on board and then getting them to understand the club and what the answers to some of these things are. With season tickets, we aren't making any moves on season tickets until we get to the end of the season, because, like I say, we could have 4 games here in New Zealand at the end of the year, which would be fantastic, and that would be ideal. So we're just going to sit on season tickets and hope get through the season as best as we can, and same with ticketing. And again, if the games come back, then we'll create some tickets and prices for that and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I will I will take that feedback and ask the team where some of these things are going. Like I get every now and then, I get one forwarded to me from the guys, and I'll reply to it and send it back. And hopefully they've responded to the person that's come through. But yeah, it certainly has been a challenge, and it's certainly not where we want to be as a club. But it is, unfortunately, an issue that we've had in trying to keep on top of things while not digging a hole for us, which is going to mean, we've become financially. The worst thing we didn't want to get to a place where we couldn't sign a player, or we couldn't sign, we couldn't put in some support services for the staff and the players because we had to employ somebody on the operational side. And the operational side, while it's important, we always said if you have a spare dollar, a dollar has to go onto the teams, because inevitably the teams, if you're not winning games, you don't have the support. So if we can spend a dollar and win an extra game, that's where it goes. But now, like I say, with the reality of the seasons hopefully coming right for next year, we're starting to upskill now in anticipation that we're back to a normal seasons and we can have home games, and then we need to have marketing, community and membership and ticketing people all back in place, ready to go for hopefully the 1st of October, which is when we're looking at October start for next season. We want to be in place well before that. Probably, our July, we run a July to June financial year, so we want someone in place before July.
Jonathan, have you got anything you want to add?
No, nothing that I'd like to add, except that we're really looking forward to the finals series. If we can, I say every year before we start, we're going to win the league. We're going to win the league. Still holding out now. So
yeah.
Happen.
You and me both, Jonathan. That's every year we say this is our year. We're a bit like the Warriors. This is our year. We're going to win the league this year. But I mean, I think for us, the positive thing is that semi-final becomes a home and away. Now that's. I would hate to lose that. That could be a casualty of the season. I don't know. No one's made this decision yet, by the way. I'm just spitballing here. But in order to get it in, you might lose second leg. But if we're in the semis and we have a home semi, well, I back ourselves to have 35,000 here, and walking away with a 3-0 win for a second leg over there. Do you know what I mean? I think it would be fantastic, and it's nothing less than the fans deserve after the years, 2.5 years of the men and 1 year of the women. It's nothing less than they deserve, and it will be something to repay all the faith and the support. But it's just. I just wish we would know, and there's some certainty, because it's so hard to plan for anything. I mean, March now, you'd potentially be selling it if you knew there was going to be those games. You could at least start building it. But it's just we're in that situation where until those borders open, until we come out of the red light, it's a little bit of a, just got to wait and see. But yeah, I mean, how great, how fantastic. And even if we get games back here at the end of April, I mean, that 24,500 we had last year at Sky Stadium was one of the greatest games the Phoenix ever played. What a result. I mean, great day, great weather, perfect result, great goals, just everything went right. And, we could repay some of the faith that the fans have. I just hope we can do that again this year.
And well, if there's anything more we'd like to add, I would like to thank David for joining us again, and for you guys watching the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, and we'll see you on the next video.